Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. It's Luke Kelsall here from Growing with Nature. Today I'm just going to give you a tour of the fruit trees in the food forest. This is the Victoria plum tree I planted 4 years ago, and you see it's developing in good shape. It's getting quite big now, starting to get some fruit this year, next year hopefully even more. But I'm just going to head down to the food forest, the main place where I planted 40 fruit trees, and just show you what's happening. I got a little pond here. I think I talked about this in my last video. I put this pond here to attract dragonflies because I planted dragonfly, basically plant species that dragonflies like, and yeah, it's actually brought in a lot of stuff. I've seen dragonflies in the garden in the summer and they're good predator to some of the insects. Believe it or not, ducks have actually managed to find it. I know it looks tiny, but ducks have found it and they've gone swimming in it, and that's actually really good because they're a natural predator to some of the stuff in the garden, like slugs. Ducks are the natural thing that would eat them, so you want ducks in your garden. So having a pond like that can actually bring in some really beneficial things for your garden. It's all about using nature as a natural control for pests in the garden. As you can see, I've left the grass uncut. This hasn't been cut in about 5 years since we started to rewild this little area. People might expect it to be like this tall by now, but nature takes care of it. You don't have to cut the grass to keep it down. In the winter, it'll die back and fall on itself and create like a netted floor and actually help fertilise the ground. It'll grow back each year better and better. So when farmers say if you don't cut the grass, otherwise it's going to end up too tall and out of control, it's not true. This is what happens. It goes like this, and actually creates such a good environment. It actually attracted a barn owl, because barn owl eats voles and field mice, and you wouldn't have that in a field like that one next door, which is what the farmers do. They come round, cut it every twice a year, killing all basically the wildlife in the field, which means it's lifeless for a barn owl to go hunting in. So you want to create an environment that wildlife wants to go in. So like I said, barn owls coming in. Barn owls are really rare in the UK, and if you want to attract one to your area and you've got space, make it the perfect environment for it to go hunting in. So this is the start of the food forest here. I've planted 40 trees in this area. Half of them I planted in February 2020, and the other half in February 2021 because I wanted to expand the food forest. I've got a mixture of plum, apple, pear, cherry. They're all a mixture of semi-dwarf and dwarf trees, and the big ones are at the back. So the spacing in between them, I've not done it too big. I think it's like 12 feet in between, so if they grow over, it should be quite tight and compact when they start to produce. This tree, or was a tree, is now no longer a tree. It was completely destroyed by a deer. So I'm going to have to come in and replace this one. You will get some losses, like I said, when you're working with nature. Some trees will naturally get attacked or destroyed by wildlife. But you see, the majority of them are okay, they're actually growing really good. But I'll just have to come through and replace these and protect them better next year. Or, if it was a deer, which it probably was this one because it's probably badly damaged, I might have to consider fencing if it happens a lot on them. If you have got deer in your area, don't go and shoot the deer, because that's not the solution. Once they get big enough, like all the other trees around, like just the ones in nature, deer and rabbits aren't doing anything and nobody's protecting them, so it's all fine. You can see the significant difference in size between that one and this one. And that's a year difference in the growth. Obviously this one's grown really well. It must be good for this kind of climate where I am. It's grown much better. It's starting to take shape now, and hopefully next year this one will have some good fruit on it, 'cause it looks pretty good. But again, it did have some initial damage, but it's survived the initial damage, and once it's got big enough, it's pretty set for life now. It's past the infancy phase where it needs caring for, and now it's becoming an adult and it's going to start producing for me. See again, look at the shape on this one. Started to turn it into a nice goblet. You want a nice goblet shape for the tree. Like, I will have cut it there a few years ago when I initially planted it, and now it's started to produce its 4 main leaders or 5 main leaders, and that'll form the base of the tree. So in like 10 years time, it'll grow out a nice shape. Got more trees again. This one I protected pretty heavy because this one was getting close to destroyed, but I've protected it and it's surviving. Once it's big enough, it won't be a problem. I'll take all it off because I don't like look at that because it doesn't like nature. But I invested in a tree and I want to protect it whilst I've got it. But yeah, it got badly damaged by a rabbit, that one. This one's a nice looking tree. This one's a Victoria plum tree, looking good. These ones, this back area over here, are actually the ones I planted first in the food forest. It's like the ones up towards that area a year younger than these ones, and that one's probably the biggest one I've got. It's a cherry tree. So that one was planted in February 2020. It's starting to get quite big, this one. It did actually have cherries on it this year, but the pigeons got to it and they didn't have enough to, to compensate for the loss of pigeons eating them. But see, it's got a lot of buds in it. It'll probably start to produce a lot next year, that one, or at least start to grow significantly bigger each year now, because it's got more leaves and more, root development. Like I said, we've got a mixture of apples, this cherry, plum, all mixed in. I did try and group them together, and also they are positioned in relation to the pollination group they're in. Again, it's not 100% necessary, because you'll find when you plant them all in the same kind of area, they will just pollinate together anyway, or you'll have trees that work together better. But I just wanted to give that extra advantage, when I'm planting them, just try and plan the garden out, so that it does have better chance of pollination, to get more fruit. I'm not actually sure the full requirements of pollination groups, but when you're buying trees online, you'll see it'll say pollination group A or B or C or D, whatever it says, and you'll have a few trees you can plant together. So you want to make sure you're aware of that if you're planting trees. This one's still got leaves in it. Quite interesting as well. All this planting I've done down here. Obviously, I'm trying to inspire other people to start their own food forests. That's why I've got this channel, sharing the progress of it and just showing people what you can do. I know it doesn't look like much now because it's winter and there's no fruit in the trees, but in the summer next year, hopefully there'll be quite a lot, and I'll do an update then. But I've actually inspired someone to start growing food, and I know that because the neighbours have actually started planting trees in their field. They looked over and thought, you know what, he looks like he's doing some good over there, I'm going to get involved. And I think they're in a bit of a competition with me. The only thing is, I never actually see him in the field at all, so I never see him in the garden or anything. So I don't know what they're aiming to achieve, but they have done one good thing. They've planted fruit trees, which doesn't require much maintenance. So yeah, they've done something good, and I'm happy I've inspired at least one person to plant a fruit tree. Obviously, if you're starting a food forest like this, you do want to be aware of the environment around you. Like, I'm not too happy with the farmer's field because they come around and spray chemicals every now and again, and some of it does, when the wind's blowing this way especially, it does come across into the field. When you're planning your garden, choose a space that is most protected or away from certain areas. Like there's a sloping bit at the top of the food forest. I decided to leave that bit empty and actually do it in a different area, because I thought, in case of runoff from the field, you want your garden to be uncontaminated and protected from chemicals that they're spraying farmers' fields like this. You can't always control the actions of other people, so just take it into your own hands. And that's why I've done a lot of the structure like I've done in this food forest, where I've planted the 40 trees, and hopefully in a few years when it starts to really produce fruit, farmers might think, oh, it looks really good, perhaps I'm going to turn this grass field, this plain boring grass field, into a fruit haven. You start to get an idea of how it would start to feel a few years down the line when they're starting to get a little bit bigger now, and you can feel the size. Hopefully it will form like a canopy structure over a little bit, more so than it is now anyway, because at the moment it's just some small trees in a field. When they start to get bigger and they crowd the space out, it'll start to look a lot more like a forest, a true food forest with just tons of fruit. I don't know what I'm going to do with all this fruit when it starts growing. I've not actually thought about the production I'm going to get. I just wanted to plant as much as I could in advance, because it does take time to grow and you want to get trees in as fast as possible. So I just jumped in, planted as many trees as I could, and now I'll deal with the abundance later, because that's not going to be too big of a problem. I can imagine when I get all this fruit, obviously I'm going to eat a lot myself. I'm going to pass a lot to friend and family. But if it is really good, I might start selling on this channel. So you might get a box of fresh plums from Luke's Food Forest, or apples from Luke's Food Forest. I'll give you a discount if you subscribe to this channel, because I do like my followers, and I do want to reward you for following me. So make sure you stay tuned for that, because a few years down the line you might think, flipping heck, he was onto it early. He spotted it. In fact, if you comment in this video, I want a box of Luke's fruit, I'll reply to your comment down the line when I've got loads of fruit, and I'll try and make it happen. But I can't promise anything, because things can happen, can't they? So hopefully this video just gives a good indicator of what's happening in the food forest. Like I said, the first video I did in this channel was in 2019, or was it 2020 actually? I have to look at my own channel to find that. Where I planted the initial fruit trees and documented the start of this food forest. Like I said, it's 3 years down the line now, and you can sort of see how it's developing, how it's starting to grow. I will do a video in the summer showing hopefully the fruit that's producing next year, and also just how the trees are developing, starting to grow, because it really will start to take off now because the roots are starting to develop and the trees are settled in basically. So hopefully this video gives you a good guide how to start your own food forest, or just gives you some inspiration to start planting your own fruit trees, because in the winter between December to February, when the trees are dormant, that's the time to get your trees planted. Again, I probably will do a video on planting trees when I'm replacing some of these that are being damaged. But as always, if you enjoyed the video, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and I look forward to seeing you next one.